We're now joined by James Robenalt. He's a presidential historian and a lawyer, and he is joining us today from Cleveland, Ohio. So good to speak with you tonight.
Nice to speak with you.
So we watched history play out today, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to this guilty on all counts for Donald Trump?
Well, as a presidential historian, I've worked for the last decade with John Dean, who was Richard Nixon's White House counsel during Watergate. And when Richard Nixon resigned the presidency, he was about to be tried himself in a criminal case. Gerald Ford pardoned him. And I think that was a big problem because it was the same type of thing, covering up crimes that helped him get elected. And he didn't go to prison. He didn't serve any time. And the message was not really given that, nobody is above the law. In fact, he got away with it. So I think today is a really important milestone because this is a very serious crime. It's not just a porn star scandal. It is interfering with a presidential election. Couldn't get any more serious. And the result, I think, is extremely important and appropriate given all the evidence.
I mean, in some ways, that history, that historical importance, the fact that a former president would go to trial, that already sort of happened on day one, didn't it, really? Like the fact that the court case did actually take place. The verdict of guilty, historically, where does that stand for you in terms of being significant? A former U.S. president, potentially future U.S. president, with now this guilty verdict?
Well, I think it's profound. And I think that to have somebody running for president of the United States who's a convicted felon is a grievous error on the Republican Party's side. This is, as I said, this is as serious a crime as you get. It may have gotten him elected in 2016. A jury that was selected by his lawyers and the other lawyers, fair and square, said that he was a convicted felon. So it's very important. During Watergate, the Attorney General of the United States stood trial for cover-up crimes in the Watergate matter. His name was John Mitchell, and he was convicted and he went to prison. And so, these things show that the system of justice is fair and equal to everyone, and nobody is above the law.
So we should point out, this is what's considered to be a low-level felony, but at the same time, it is a felony that the heart of it is really election interference in the 2016 election that led Donald Trump to office. You make the comparison. You've mentioned Watergate a couple times here. How would you say this scandal compares to other political scandals that have happened in the United States in terms of politics?
I think it's parallel to Watergate. Watergate was the break-in of the Democratic National Committee by people in the president's re-election committee. And then Nixon engaged and led a cover-up so that the people wouldn't know that the White House was involved and that his people in the White House were involved. So it's very similar. It is, trying to keep important information from the electorate before an election, getting elected as a result of that information not being out there. So I think it's very similar. And so I think it is, as I said, it's not just about the economic crimes or a porn star scandal. It really is about, our election system being tampered with by various parties. And to me, it's as serious as Watergate and as serious as it gets.
Your comparison to Watergate is so interesting. I can see the similarities, the difference being that in Watergate there was a huge amount of outcry from the general American public. It doesn't seem to be the case, though, at least with Republican voters. When it comes to this trial, they're convincing them that he was being politically persecuted. How is the public perception different now than in past presidential scandals, and maybe why do you think it's different?
Well, actually, during Watergate, the Republicans stuck by Nixon until July of 1974, when the Supreme Court ordered his tapes be turned over. And it was at that point, there was a smoking gun tape that showed him leading the cover-up, and his support vanished. But up until that time, he did have his party behind him. He'd won a landslide victory in 1972, every state except Massachusetts. So he had a lot of support. Then it evaporated, and the Republicans did the right thing. I don't think that's going to happen this time. And I think the difference is that Trump has such a stranglehold on a core, maybe a third of the Republican Party, that they are scared to death of him and will not stand up to him. And we've seen that with the 2 impeachments. We've seen that repeatedly. So I don't think that's going to change. But I do think there's a sliver of people who are independents and some Republicans who are really going to be turned off by this and not be interested in voting for somebody who's a convicted felon for president of the United States.
Given what you know about the U.S. Political history, is this something you ever could have predicted or seen coming? The fact that we would have this a hush payment to a porn star on the behalf of someone who went on to become president and may once again become president?
Yeah, well, we've had our share of sex scandals. I mean, Bill Clinton committed perjury himself in a deposition, which is criminal, in the Monica Lewinsky thing. So we've had our share of that sort of stuff. But I think what's so different here is that this was a group of people, David Pecker, the National Enquirer, catching and killing stories so that the public couldn't know about it, paying money, and therefore it's like a campaign contribution that's not declared. That sort of stuff goes straight to the integrity of the election and the election system. And it's interesting that he came into office committing a crime, and now he's charged with leaving office committing a crime by saying he would, essentially inspiring an insurrection when he didn't win. So this is a criminal president from start to finish. And I think this is the first shoe to drop, and I think there will be more shoes to drop. And it'll be very interesting to see how support for him evolves over the next few weeks.
Presidential historian and lawyer James Robenalt joining us from Cleveland, Ohio. Good to speak with you, James. Thank you.
Nice to talk to you. Thanks.